All right. Well, I'm going to jump over and screen share so we can get stuck in. So it's great to support you guys today and talk about one of the things that's really changed my lives. And I know there's a couple of people on here that I've done a lot of work with around the planning and things like that too, and seen it impact many businesses in a very positive way also. So let me just switch over here to screen share, get the keynote started. All right. Just double checking everyone can see that. Perfect. All right. Now I'm just going to move this stuff out of the way because I've got like two screens and everything's in the wrong spot. So what we're talking about today is the power of strategic planning. And I'm not talking about a business plan. If someone says when you need to go to the bank to get money, you need a business plan or whatever the case is, I'm actually talking about a strategic plan. And a strategic plan is actionable, it's dynamic, it's something that will be like a living and breathing document. It's something that, especially in small business, we need to have that ability to be nimble and to adapt quickly, particularly when things happen like COVID or, the potential R word, recession, or interest rates go up or inflation goes up and the market shifts and changes. We need to be able to change our plan quickly and not have some 5-year set of or 10-year set of goals set in stone. And then when we hit a roadblock, we're like, oh crap, what do I do now? Because there's no ability to be fluid in the planning. So I want to ask, on the, I probably should open the chat up. I'm just going to open the chat up so I can see it as well. In the chat, just put a thumbs up or a Y or an N. Do you or don't you have a current strategic plan in your business right now? Just like a Y for yes and an N for no. I'd just love to see how many people don't. Gary, or you should have one. So you are one of my clients too. So that's a good win there. And anyone else? Does anyone else have one or not have one? So yep, great, Sean, you've got one, excellent. And anyone else got a plan in place currently? If not, that's generally what I see is in small business. It's not something that we do. It seems too big, too heavy, too cumbersome. You've got to have this 24-page document. In the end, what your plan should give you is 3 things to do each quarter. That's it. Nothing else, just 3 things. Maybe less, maybe a couple more if you've got a bigger team. But generally, it's up to 3 things. And it should be simple. It shouldn't be complicated. So the other thing I'd love to know too, because we want to tie planning back to your business, so to your situation specifically, if you could put and play along because you're going to get more value, because you're going to get direct answers and responses from me to support you with my background in 30 plus years in business, that I can actually support you by answering your specific opportunity or issue that you have in your business during the webinar. So even to take the time to type it in over time, we'll get to those questions at some stage. But the question is, what is your biggest issue or biggest opportunity in your business right now? Because what I would like to do is be able to, for those of us on this webinar tonight, to be able to tie back this content rather than just being, oh, that was interesting, actually taking it and applying it to your situation and walking away with something tangible. So if you want to do that, put the effort in for a minute, type it in there, and we'll answer that as well, because I'll be able to answer it directly to your situation. So next up, we move to a diagram we have, not that one, this one, which are the 6 steps to the actual planning process, right? And what we do is we have effectively what we term our brick wall, or it's our coloring in that we do. And we ask a bunch of questions in the form, and we get people to color it in. And by coloring it in, you're answering the question to say, do I have a marketing plan, 0%, 25, 50, 75, 100% complete, right? And what happens is when you go through these questions in the different pillars we teach from, and 8 pillars of our foundation that we teach from. And what it does is allows you to see, when you color those things in, you'll see all the gaps. And it's basically like a brick wall. If a brick wall is missing half of the bricks, the thing's going to fall down. And it allows us to diagnose a business. It allows us to diagnose what is actually missing or could be implemented to dramatically improve that business very, very quickly. So it's used as a diagnostic tool. We then move to step 2, where we actually want to celebrate what we've actually achieved. So part of our planning process is not just what do we need to do next. As an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur myself, I was very much all right, I've done that, what's next? Done that, tick, next. Very rarely did I stop, turn around and look at the view or smell the roses. I had to learn how to do that. And so we go through and we work through and go, okay, what are our celebrations as a team or as a business? What have we achieved in the last 90 days? What have we done? And we take that down and we look at that and say, okay, that's amazing, because what can actually come out of that is something we've achieved could actually become one of our, what we call our strategic priorities. So those priorities we end up working on to make sure that those celebrations, things we're celebrating or the wins that we've had, happen again. So you actually capture it and it becomes an action item to embed that process within your system, within your business systems. So next we have realizations. The realizations are those aha moments, right? They're those things when we work through and go, right, okay, what have I realized this quarter? Okay, I've realized I think I need a new team member, or that person's not really working in the business. Maybe we need to give them some more training or something like that. Or I've realized that the market's shifting, so maybe I need to focus more on some active marketing than just waiting on referrals or something like that. So it's actually those things that you realize, those moments where you go, there's that situation, we need to change it either for the better or remove it completely, or modify it, or bring in something new where you go, crap, I've realized there's this big gap, big hole in our business. So we take it from there. And the next one is the unexpected. There's those things. What are those unexpected things that could happen, like COVID, like a recession, like interest rates going up really, really fast? Those unexpected things that could actually damage your business in some way, that they're actually a threat to your business. So if you don't identify the threats and then don't do anything about, like just pretend they're not there, that you're not actually going to be prepared. So there's companies like petrol companies and stuff like that have all of these contingencies for what happens if one of their ships catches fire or leaks oil, or one of their the oil rigs or whatever it is has a problem. They have all these plans in place that if the unexpected happens, they know how to deal with it. We do need to identify some of those key things that could affect our business and potentially take it out completely.
And Sean, on that one, I've been very careful with the steel business and creating the steel business from scratch with the suppliers that we've got. So I've been thinking a lot about having overseas suppliers, but I keep gravitating towards China because that's where everyone's getting it from. But looking at the horizon, what's going on with Australia, what's going on with China, what's going on with the rest of the world, going, well, I don't really want all my suppliers coming from China, and then there's a trade embargo, or there's some other type of problem. So I've been very careful about that, which is why we're going across to Vietnam also to check out other suppliers and such as well.
You're not the only person to do that. One of our other clients that use steel manufacturing are also looking to diversify in India, Europe, and America as well, to de-risk themselves from the fact that everything's being made in China at the moment. And there is a potential risk that something could happen and it will block supply very, very rapid, like just suddenly overnight gone. And so we do need to take those things into account, particularly in politically and globally unsettling situations or time frames when we've got things going on like they are at the moment, is just to be cautious to try and protect yourself as best you can. So absolutely.
And we saw that one, just really quickly, we saw that with how quickly Australia put, and the rest of the European, the rest of the Western society put embargoes on Russia. It happened overnight. So if you were buying stuff from Russia, gone, couldn't do it anymore. As soon as they said it at 11:59, done, finished, no transferring money, up shit creek. So it can happen.
And businesses can get just taken out overnight, just immediately. So it's, definitely want to look out for those. And so the thing what we want to do too is the next step is step 3. It's identifying what are our strategic opportunities. Okay. So what are those opportunities that are in front of us that we could look at, that we could consider at that point in time? Are there any currently there? There might be joint venture partnerships. There might be the potential to acquire another business that's a competitor and roll them in so that you grow your business much more rapidly. Or it could be opportunities to bring somebody new into the team to take on a new role or something like that as well. So there's some strategic opportunities there too. Now, the next step is creating our actual priorities. And so from that list, we go through our strategic opportunities, celebrations, realizations, unexpected, and the 8 pillars, and basically go through and go, right, what are the things that we know that we need to do at some point in time that are strategic? I'm not talking that planning is not about giving yourselves a giant bloody list of to-do items to stay busy. It's not that, right? what we're creating here, are objectives or outcomes. They're not tasks. They're not actions, right? These are outcomes. There's only two things that come out of planning. One of the outcomes and one of the actions. Not at the action step yet. These are just outcomes. So we want to identify the strategic priorities, because the planning is designed to gather data for us to make decisions. It's a decision-making tool within the business. And it's about excluding non-critical items, so we're not focusing our time and attention on them, and allocating those goals to particular, or those outcomes to particular team members for them to actually take responsibility for them if we have teams, to ideally take some of that responsibility from us. And it's a practice, right? It's something we need to do every 90 days, a couple of hours every 90 days. And it sets yourself up and makes things very, very clear, very like laser focused for you and for your team. Because, and I'll talk to some of that stuff in a minute about the team. So, and it helps you stay on course ultimately. So what we do is we create strategic priorities. Now, there's no time attached to those priorities, those outcomes. These are just things that by doing this process of the first three things at the start, we identify, yes, we're going to need a marketing plan at some point. We're going to need this here. We need to systemize our business more. We need to have a better financial reporting, or whatever the case is, right? So we identify all these things and we say, these are all of the strategic things that at some point in time we're going to do. There's no pressure in that list. It's just about capturing it so you know what it is. We then take that risk. Then if you've done it before, step 5 is resetting it. If you haven't done it, step 5 is irrelevant. That's only when you do it the second time. But step 6 is the step of the quarterly priorities. Now, the quarterly priorities are the ones you're going to focus on. So let's say you end up with a list of 12 strategic priorities. You say, right, what are the most valuable of those that if we get them done in the next 90 days, that's going to move our business forward the quickest. And the goal is to bring those in and bring them forward, right? So you then bring them into your quarterly priorities. They now become our focal point. The strategic priorities stay there on a list. They sit there. Great. It's always there, but we can go and get them later. We take the 2 or 3 or however many it is that you need to take off there that you can actually achieve in 90 days. And we just focus on them, right? And I'm going to talk shortly about how to execute now once you've done there. So you do the background, which is creating the data. The data then creates the priorities, the strategic ones, which can be done they're going to be done at some point in time. And then we do the quarterly priorities, which are now our focal point. So that's the layers. In this next diagram, I'm going to show you here, it's what we call the foundational core. Now, I created this after working with well over 1,200 business owners, one-on-one for 6 months or more. So I understood there was a distinct difference between those that created success and those that were still kind of floundering and not quite able to crack it. And I know that Sean Legend Crocker on here has a nickname for the fan. He nicknamed it the what was it? It was the effing fan. And you have a giant fan in your factory that you would stand in front of and do your videos and have that effing fan behind you, because it took a while to actually get some of these elements together. Now, we're not going to talk about the top half today. The top half is the personal piece. It's us as the business owner. It's what's our personal purpose. What's our values? What do we stand for? What are we willing to accept, not accept? What's our definition of leadership, which is effectively the skin we wear, who we want to be known as? And then our definition of success. What does success mean to us? Right? And what's important to us. And the vision is the overarching piece in the middle. It overarches all of this. It's how we want to experience the world in the future. But what we're focusing on today is related to strategic planning. And the bottom half of this propeller is for that. The reason why it's a propeller is, one, my dad was in aviation, so I've been around aviation all my life. But it came to me because if you imagine this propeller on an airplane and a couple of blades are missing, or some are shorter or longer than others, and you tried to spin that propeller, you tried to get the engine to rev up, what's going to happen? The thing's going to shake itself to pieces. It's only going to be able to spin very slowly before it starts to wobble and break apart. And I've seen that happen in businesses as well, when they don't have the foundations in place, that the business is kind of can't get that propeller to spin. Now, when you get it more balanced, you can spin it faster. And of course, when a propeller spins faster, what does it create? It creates thrust, which means forward motion. The faster you can spin it, i.e. the more balanced that is, and the more you've got each of those elements in place, the more thrust it creates. And therefore the business moves forward, and us as a business owner can move forward with a lot more ease, less effort. It starts to drive itself forward, with the thrust coming off that propeller.
Just to add to that a little bit, Sean, I know on my journey through doing this with you for the past 5 or 6 years, that the top half took me a little bit to get, probably 2.5 years. The bottom half was pretty easy, but it wasn't actually easy. I just thought it was easy, because every single time, I'm going to use your word, every single time I saw a distraction or squirrel, I would jump off target. I'd jump off course, and I would take my eyes off the ball of what we needed to achieve in the business, the fastest route to achieve that, and I'd get distracted with something else. And that's because the bottom half, so the business purpose, the mission, core values, the strategic plan, I wasn't focusing on that enough. And then you'd go back to, hey, Gary, do you want to do this thing about a silly idea that was previously we said yes to?
Should be a big list of that, isn't there?
There is a big list of them. That's why I'm surprised I can't think of it. But there's many times where people have suggested things to me that I think are going to be really cool idea, and I invest 10, 20, 30 hours into it, later to find out that it's not going to work for different reasons. But it's that waste of time that I put into it, which I could have easily put that back into building the accounting firm, changing the systems of process here and making it better. I thought of the one, like a vending machine business. I put a good 20, 30 hours in the idea or the concept of, putting vending machines at different places and having that as a business model many, many years ago now. And I still have the spreadsheet to prove that the numbers don't stack up if anyone wants to see it.
So Gary's hint is, don't buy a vending machine business.
Don't buy a vending machine business.
Or start one.
Unless it's like 10,000.
And you're right, Gary. It's such a common thing with small business owners, because there's so many bloody squirrels running around that we have to chase. It makes it very hard for us to settle into what's actually the foundation of the business. And for those business owners that have a team that are watching this, whether it's live or the recording, it's about embedding this into the team. It's not about you as a business owner. I know there's a lot of business coaching out there that's just crams all this information into the business owner's head. And by cramming it into the head, you're now the bottleneck. You're trying to get it out of your head. You don't understand it yet because so much information has gone in. You don't fully understand it. Then you try to teach it to your team and all sort of stuff. What we need to do is embed these things, the business purpose, mission, values, and the planning into the team so it forms part of the DNA of the culture of the business. Because then it's not reliant on you anymore as a business owner. Because if you're the business owner, the buck stops with you. If you're not there, you can't take your bloody holiday, or if you do, you're stressed out and you're on your phone every 5 minutes while you're in Fiji trying to get some reception or wherever you are, right? It just doesn't work. And
that'll be me in in Vietnam next week.
Vietnam, yeah. No, but you've created a business where you're actually able to take some downtime now. But earlier on, you can't. And I know I was in that same place too. I just did not have the time. And if I did go away, I almost needed a holiday from the holiday because it was actually more painful trying to prepare for it. And then when I came back, it was just a dog's breakfast. So, it wasn't worth it. But focusing on the top is a being, it's the personal bit, and the bottom is the doing. And it's very important. There's a great book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. If you haven't read that book, it's an incredible book to listen to, because people are now looking for more purpose. And another great book is Drive by Neil Pink. Now, I always refer to those books is because he talks about the 3 human drivers in Drive. And if you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is, food, shelter, community, mobile phone, and internet, we've all got those needs met now, right? So now that they're met, there's other things that are more important and they're less tangible. They're not just like having food or having shelter from wild animals trying to kill us. It's actually a lot more intangible now. And those 3 things are autonomy, which is having people feel like they're in control of their own destiny in some way. Mastery, which means that people are learning and growing and they're better tomorrow than they were today. And purpose, which is that they're part of something that's bigger than themselves. And if you've got people aligned with a purpose, if you have a purpose, and for example, the purpose of my Inner Circle group is helping people succeed. Now, that's a clear purpose. That's what we do. That's why we do it, not what we. That's why we do it. We do it to help people succeed. And the success piece is what they've defined in that fourth blade on the top there. It's their definition of success, not Instagrams where you're laying on the bonnet of somebody else's Lamborghini in front of somebody else's jet or whatever. It's real. It's what people actually define as success. And I don't know anyone that I work with that's actually chasing that goal. They actually want choice. They want freedom, the freedom to choose. They want time. They want experiences to travel, more time with family and friends, and more options to do things in their lives than just work and have their business own them effectively. So the why is really important because that'll help you attract and retain people in your team because they're actually aligned to the same outcome. And I know that with my team, and I know that there's Tracy and Sean and Gary that have all been or are part of my inner circle group, and they've seen this firsthand, that this purpose that we live, that my team are absolutely aligned to that purpose. And as soon as somebody is not, they deselect, they walk out. They just walk out, but they say, look, it's not really working anymore, not feeling it. And that's okay. People are around for a short time, sometimes a longer time, and sometimes a lifetime. It just depends on who they are and whether they maintain that alignment. And the next thing is a mission. So if you know why you're doing it, there's a bigger why, and you have that purpose. The next thing is a mission. Right? So if you have a soccer team, all right, guys, we're going to run around the field and kick the ball to each other. What's the point? There's no mission. Well, the mission is you want to win the cup at the end of the season. So you need to win each game. They're the smaller parts, or as many games as you can to get in the top, get in the grand final, and then win that game to actually win the title, right? So people need something to shoot for. They need to align for a common goal. Because again, this is the purpose, is why they're doing it. The mission is what? What are they aligning towards? And then the third one is the core values, which is the who. And the core values determine who you hire and fire, right? So the core values, and we have some of them, we do what we say we will do. We are deliberate, not desperate. We have a culture of continuous improvement, things like that. These are our core values as a business. If people don't align to the values, then they need to go. And usually I'll deselect before we have to actually have that conversation with them. But sometimes we do. And this is across different businesses that I've been in. I use very similar values because it's what I stand for. And it's what I believe makes for a great culture and a great group of people. And then the last one is the strategic plan, which is the how. So when you know why you're doing it, you know what you're trying to achieve, and you've got the right people in the right seats on the bus, this is now the map, the how. So you know where you are now. Your mission is where you're going. It's the summit of the mountain. And then the strategic plan is how you're actually going to climb up the mountain. So that's how it works. And the key, the strategic plan is what you're going to achieve. And what I'm going to be working on next is the execution framework. This is how you're going to achieve it. Okay. So your strategic plan, this is what we're going to achieve. These are our goals. By this quarter, we're going to do this. Execution framework is the actual action taking to make sure that they're actually achieved by that quarter. So the execution framework is the next step following the planning, right? And if you don't have great execution, a plan ends up being like shelf help. It's just a document that either sits on the shelf, stuck on the wall, or goes in a drawer, right? And you never do anything with it. And you look back like a year later and you're like, oh, that's right. We did a plan a year later, a list of things we need to do. But if you don't have an actual framework to execute, it won't work. Now,
that's me doing that. Doing the plan and then looking back 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, oh shit, I forgot about that. Better do that.
That's why we need to embed the framework, and why your team are doing that for you, Gary, in the Teams program, in a Circle Teams, so that they can do this for you, because you are a visionary in the business. Another great book, Rocket Fuel. Make sure you read that book, because it talks about the visionary in the business and then an integrator role. The visionary is the one that's looking, well, squirrel this, squirrel that, orc, chicken, whatever. They're seeing all these different things, right? And by seeing those different things, they're going, oh, wow, there's this. What we need is people. So when we're a visionary, like myself, Gary, etc., we need additional people to support the actual capturing of those ideas and going, is that a good idea or not? And being willing to go, you know what, Gary? No vending machines. Sorry.
No vending
not a good idea. But those ones that do stick, that are good ideas, they then use the resources within the business and the team to actually execute it. And they take the action, right? They help support you in that role. And it's a great book, Rocket Fuel, and it's on Audible as well if you prefer to listen to books like I do. And so it helps define that. But ultimately, as a business owner, if we want to create a business that runs without us, which is what we teach, is to help people create what we call a freedom business, a business they can choose to work in but don't have to, right? If you're going to create that, you can't be the bottleneck. You can't be the one that's going out and doing that work on site every day. You can't be the one that's, doing the payroll and sweeping the floors and all the rest of it, right? You can't, because you're never going to get out of the business. So the point of the methodology, this methodology was taught to us by my co-host on the Few podcast, Boo, who's Christian Bukoussis. He's a former F-18 fighter pilot in the Australian Air Force. And they have a framework they've developed over nearly 100 years, which is called the sprint methodology, okay? And in the Air Force, their mission success rate is 98%, okay? Now, the biggest businesses in the world, with all the money that they could ever imagine, all the different departments and everything, can't even achieve 50% of the goals they set, right? So this methodology is proven to more than double the performance of actually achieving your goals. And it runs on the basis of a 14-day cycle, because 90 days is too long. If I said to you, hey, can you do these 3 things for me in the next 90 days? You're like, yeah, sure. Okay. 30 days later, you're like, oh, I've got those things to do that Sean asked me to do. That's right. Yeah, I better get to them. 60 days in, you're like, oh, crap. I've got those 3 things that Sean asked me to do. I still haven't done them yet. I better start doing them, right? And then they kind of start doing them, and then they've only got a month or less to actually get them done. Because human psychology means it's not urgent enough. It's not close enough to hear. It can wait. There's too much noise going on in our lives. And so 7 days, some people say a month, it's still too long. People can wait 2 weeks and then start. 1 week is too short, because who's ever had a week that just turns to crap, where you go, got my week all planned out. I've got all this space. I'm going to be able to get this project done and that thing done and go and see these clients. And it just turns to crap, right? And nothing happens. It's like, what the heck did I do this week? There's literally nothing that I've actually achieved. So in a week, it can be too short. So they use the 14-day sprint methodology. And by using that, you've got the ability to set that action. So what are my actions for this next 14 days? You do it as a team. So the team are now accountable to each other. So they do that. You work it out in front of each other. Sean, I agree to this. Tracy, I agree to this. Hey, Simon, I agree to this, right? And, or Gary, and we agree to this. So we all know what each other's agreeing to. Now, what we're not doing is saying that, Gary, that's your thing. Good luck. Trace, yours. See you later. Whatever. Come back in 14 days. Did you do it or not? No, I didn't get to it. It was too busy. There's too many squirrels, whatever. Oh, well, then you should do it the next sprint. No, this is like a team on a football field. You don't have 5 team members go off and have lunch while in the middle of a game to leave everyone else to lose the game, okay? What it is, this is about accountability and action as a team. So in the middle, at day 7, we actually do a review. How are we tracking? Where are you up to? Did you have one of those horrendous weeks where time's just gone? Okay, how's next week looking? Next week looks pretty good. Think I can get it done. Okay, or next week's looking pretty good. However, because of this week, I'm behind. I need a little bit of support to make sure as a team, we all achieve those items that are on our 14-day sprint. So we're aligning as a team to achieve the outcome. We're not giving it to an individual and then checking in 14 days to see if they've done it. And I can tell you the impact this had on my team. We introduced this about this time, or about April last year, or March or April last year. So we actually got Boo to come in and consult to my business. And he already said, guys, you've already got a very high performing team. We're a very nimble, very small team, but we achieve a great deal as a team. We and my team and I managed to almost double our strategic output within 3 months of using this strategy. So I'm not talking doing twice as much. I'm doing 80 hours work in 40 hours. I'm talking doing everything like normal, but doubling those strategic items that actually move our business forward, because we were supporting each other. When someone had a good week and they had a bit more space, they could jump in and help someone that wasn't. We weren't leaving everyone to their own devices. And so it's really, really impactful and very powerful framework. So there are some essentials around the execution framework. Okay. So when you're setting these things with your team, you need to make sure that each one of them has a number. Okay. Number 1, 2, 3, whatever. And it needs to connect to your quarterly priority. Now, we talked to that before. This is achieving that. So let's say your quarterly priority was we have hired a new salesperson who has now started in the business, right? Now, we always write our priorities in as if they are done, not we're going to, or we want to, or maybe one day we should possibly do this, because there's no certainty in that. It needs to be, we have done X, we've achieved it. So that when you're reading it, hey, what's the outcome? We have got this new salesperson. Okay, so your first 14-day sprint, that might be number 1 on your quarterly priorities. There might be 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so you might go, okay, number 1. Okay, this week, relating to number 1, which is the quarterly priority, I'm going to do task 1. So it's going to be 1.1. Task 2 is going to be 1.2. Task 3 is 1.3, but they all are a subset of the actual quarterly priority. So the first one might be draft, 1.1 might be draft a role description for the sales role. The second one might be we have drafted a job ad to put on Seek, etc. Right? So you go forward and do each of the steps. You might only have those 2 in the first sprint, because the second sprint is now posting the ad, and that might be 1.3 and 1.4. And the next sprint might be interviewing, right? And then the next sprint may be hiring. So in 8 weeks, you've actually gone through the entire hiring process. You haven't lumped it all in 1 week. You haven't given yourself this giant to-do list. You've kept it really succinct and only focus on those things that you're working on in that 14 days. Because you've captured the quarterly priority. You don't need to worry about it. You've broken it down. What do I need to do in this fortnight to make sure we achieve that in the next 90 days? Okay. So the next thing we need is an owner. Who is responsible? Now, that does not mean it's the person that does the work. And I know in my business, and Gary, you're probably the same, given how inability to focus on things like even keeping your camera on, is that someone else will own it and they'll use us as a resource to achieve the goal, right? Because we're thinking like, ooh, over here somewhere. So in my business, I have my awesome integrator, Katie, who's been somehow put up with me for 17 years. And she is a gun, right? She's my operations manager. And I never get allocated the responsibility of an action or an outcome for that sprint. She takes responsibility and she kicks my ass until I do it. That's basically it, because I'm doing like content and I'm on this phone call and I'm chatting to this person, I'm traveling to Sydney, I'm doing that. So she's got to just stay on me. And I know that if she sends me a message and like, oh, what haven't I done? I get it done, right? Whereas if I'm left to my own devices, I can forget for like a whole month to do something because I haven't even looked at the list where the thing was, because I didn't even think to look at the list. So what I'm doing is I'm playing to my strengths. My strengths are I'm a resource for the business. If they need it, it's probably not as bad as what I'm making it out to be, because I'm pretty good at executing. But the point is that some of us are quite flighty like that, and we need someone to ground us. And it's often not us that should have a responsibility. Now, if you don't have a team or you've only got a couple of team, keep that responsibility for some of those yourself. But if you've got a bigger team and you've got somebody who is like an ops manager or a senior admin role, get them to take that responsibility and support you, get you as a support or a resource to do the work that they need so that they can tick it off at the end of that fortnight. The next thing we need is a date. Okay. So if it's a 14-day sprint, you might have that done in the first 7 days. Your goal is to get that done the first week because it has to be done so that the next week something can happen because there's actually a deadline. So you need to put a date on it. You need to be able to measure it, so that to make sure that it's very clear. It might be something that can be finished at the end of the sprint. That's okay. Then just put that as the date. So the next thing we need is a metric. How do you quantify that you are achieving it or on the journey of achieving it or have achieved it? So not everything is as black and white as, yep, it's done. You might need to use a percentage and say, yep, I'm about 40% of the way through this week. I've got 60% to go and I should be able to get it done next week. Right? So it gives you that opportunity to at least gauge, and for your team to share all theirs as well. Where are they up to? Look, are we, Daniel, for example, are we on track for that, or do you need some support? And one of the other team that are further along the journey of theirs actually jump in and help, so that we can make sure we all achieve that. We all kick a goal by the end of the sprint. And the last one is a status. We need to just know simply, it's not started, it's in progress, and obviously the metric relates to that. Is it a bottleneck? So there's something blocking us from achieving it. So it could be an external party we're waiting on. We're waiting on a contract to deliver those plans back to us so we can actually go into site. If that's something we can't control, then that becomes a bottleneck. Now, that might stop us from being able to achieve that in that 14 days. We then need to roll it to the next 14-day sprint as well. And if it's achieved, you can tick it off, like, yep, achieved 100%, whatever it is. So we need to be able to measure those 5 things are a key part of making sure you execute that. Now, to tie this all together, to help it makes more sense, is, again, this is the foundational core and the planning in action. Your business purpose is why we exist, why the business exists. The mission and the base camps are our steps on the way up to that mission. I haven't touched on this today. We don't have time to do that today. It's what we want the business to look like in the future. We want it to look like this. We want to have, X revenue or Y profit, or we want to have, 3 locations, or whatever the case is, whatever your mission is. The strategic plan is what we will achieve in the next 90 days only. Okay. That is the plan. It is reviewed and reset every 90 days to keep it relevant, particularly in a small business, and add to that, markets that are a bit unstable. The fortnightly sprints is what we'll execute in the present fortnight. When we finish that sprint, it's now sprint number 2. And then you keep going. You don't start again for the quarter, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You just keep going. So you can look at those sprints, go back and look historically if you need to. But the goal is that this is how we execute what we're actually doing. And then our values, as part of the foundational core, is the glue that helps us execute and perform as a team. If we do not have a set of values and embed those in our business as part of the DNA, the language of the business, we will end up with a bunch of people that probably don't want to spend any time together, that are all acting on their own. And it's like having, they might all be stars. And sometimes a group of talented people actually achieve less match wins than a group of lower talented people that are actually working together as a team, right? It's the power of the team that achieves the goals for the business, that helps us achieve those things on our strategic plan. It's not any one individual. So you need to make yourself sure you're doing that.
And I'll add to that one, Sean, that the team doesn't have to be just inside your organization.
Yes.
We work together quite well. We also, I work with Martin and some other people too. And some, I look at it and go, well, my team does include these extended people outside of my organization, because we do bring them in as part of the team. So, good suppliers, good people that you work with, sometimes they might be part of the team, not just, the team members that you employ.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, the same thing. More than half of our team are external contractors. They're external providers, and they're not full time. So, as you say, they can be. We might have our videographer who does all of our events. We've got the person who does all the sound and things. We've got people that edit things for us, but they're part of our team, and we allocate parts of that sprint to them to achieve, because we've got deadlines. And if they don't want to align with how we want to do work, we'll find somebody else. But they've found it really impactful, and they've actually taken it. Most of them have taken it and applied it to their business as well. Because once they get exposed to it, they're like, hang on, this works really well. You guys are the easiest client to work with. Initially, we thought it was painful, but we need to embed this in our business, and they go and do that as well. So, and the other thing you need to do, obviously, is to surround yourself with the right people, and have people around you in your team, external providers, or other people giving you support and advice to help you learn these sorts of things. Because obviously I can't teach you the details of specifically how to do it and run you through a plan in a 45 to 60-minute webinar. But there are definitely people out there that can support that. That's what we obviously do in Inner Circle. But it's find the right people that give the right support at the right time, and not generalist support. Okay. If you've got a heart problem, the GP is not going to help you fix it, right? And a lot of situations, people go and they get advice from people, but that advice is coming from someone who is just giving generalist information. So like it might be a coach or something that says, yeah, do more marketing. And you're like, okay, marketing. You're like, okay, what sort of marketing? And actually, marketing's not our biggest problem at the moment. This person doesn't even know our business. So you've got to make sure you're working with somebody that understands your business. And I know that that's what Hatcher does, is to understand the businesses from the financials up, is from the inside out, so to speak. And, I mean, I've been working with Gary now for about 6 years as my accountant across my copious numbers of directorships that I collect. I think I collect like stamps. Thankfully, we shut 6 of them down this year. But we've been working together a lot, right? And having that resource to say, hey, I've got this idea. I want to buy some vending machines. Can you run some numbers for me? Right? Actually, it wasn't vending machines, but I've definitely gone through that process. Or it might have been, hey, I'm going to go around Australia in a caravan for a year. How do I legally make it tax deductible? And you're like, here's the legislation. You sent me the legislation. Doesn't mean that me as my own business owner can't do the same thing as if I was hiring a team member to do it. I was legitimately working from my caravan, driving around Australia, trying to get internet. But it's about getting that advice. And I can get that advice. I've got a lawyer that I've been working with for 7 or 8 years now as well, who's an absolute gun, Craig. And I know there's a couple of people on here who know Craig as well. And that having those team members that can give me the advice and that support to help me achieve. And that's the one thing I've had last 15, 16 years now. There was only 1 year, I think it was the 3rd or 4th year out of those 16, where I didn't have some form of support, mentorship, coach, what do you want to call it? And that year I went backwards. Every other year I've moved forwards. And I still have peer mentors. I still have mentors that work with me on different levels, personal development, financial understanding and complicated structures. Gary, Craig, my solicitor, they're all supporting me to learn and grow and develop so that I can apply that. And I can also teach that to other people as well. And I mean, Gary, I'd love to throw to you for a sec. What advice would you give to people, in that same boat, looking to grow and develop and move forward?
I look at it I can only go off what my journey is and what I've seen, and what I've seen other people's journey is. So from my eyes, from my perspective, but I always look at it and go, people have that mindset of growth, and we want to work with someone that can show you the pathway to do that growth. So in the context here, one of the reasons why I started working with you, which I don't know if we ever talked about it before, but I'm like, okay, Sean's done some really cool businesses. He's already done what I want to do from the size, organization, turnover, the complexities. He's done that. So he's going to be someone that is going to be able to help me to achieve that. So when I'm finding the people that I want to work with and surround myself with, it's always people that have done what I want to do or what I want to do, whether it's wealth creation or in the business space. And they're the ones that I surround myself with. It's not, you look
it's
at
like a heart surgeon. You wouldn't go to a heart surgeon that's only ever learnt heart surgery from a book.
Correct. You wouldn't trust it.
Like, holy, this person learned it from a book. I'm an amazing heart surgeon in my head. And you're going to be my first patient. You definitely don't want that.
It's like, and for the marketing people out there, it's like on LinkedIn, I reckon twice a day I get a messaging from some marketing agency trying to generate leads for me. And my answer back to them is normally the same, that if they have to resort to spamming random people on LinkedIn to get leads, I don't, that means that they mustn't be doing too well in their business, and their business should be thriving because they should be killing it and getting lots of referrals.
Yeah. That's like, don't work with an accountant who's in their 60s. I think you said this to me, Gary, when I met you. You're in your mid-20s when I met you, and my accountant had a stroke and he was 70. And mind you, we'd made a few mistakes that Gary picked up, which was a good refund on tax for us and a few other people on this call too. That you said to me, you said, Sean, if I'm 60 and still your accountant, you need to fire me.
Correct.
Right? And I'm like, that's great, because I know what you do outside of this business. I know that you've got the steel business. I know that you're doing other things. You're an investor and all other stuff. That's why I still have you as my accountant, because you're active and you're actually doing it. You're not like this accountant that's still doing 50 hours a week that's been doing it for 25 years. If your accountant's trying to advise you on your business and how to create a great business, and their business isn't great, I just don't understand. You just get a different accountant. Right. Yeah. And obviously people are on here because Gary and Hatcher and that are your accountants. But if you've got someone else that's not working for you, you need to find one find one that's actually doing it. They're singing the same tune. They're walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree.
So Any questions, guys? This is obviously a succinct webinar. If anyone got any questions, throw them in the box there, or put your hand up, the little digital hand, and we can unmute you so you can actually ask your question in context. If you've got a business, what's your biggest, like I said before, what's your biggest opportunity or your biggest issue at the moment? And let's see how we could potentially apply some of what we've learned today straight to your situation. So I'll give it 30 seconds. Otherwise, if there's crickets, then we'll wrap it up, which there generally is, because for some reason on webinars, I think most people are webinared out. There's been so many webinars the last 5 years. Mr. Crocker, I'll ask you to unmute. Oh, you're muted again. You've played this game before. Okay, there we go.
All right, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
So with your fortnightly sprints and you get the team together, do you, at that point, as a team, do you create the next lot of goals for the fortnight or actions or whatever you call them? Is that where you gather them together?
The first one, you would create the first set. Then at the end of so when you then do the new 14-day sprint, you review the last one. Are there any that need to come across to the next one? And what is it we need to achieve, guys? Okay, we need to do this. Okay, who's going to take responsibility for that? Yep, I'll take that one. Trace might go, yep, I'll take this one. I'll take responsibility. Sean, I need to use you as a resource for this in the next 2 weeks. You're going to have availability for that. Yep, sweet, done. And it works from there.
Okay, so everyone's on a different, perhaps you could be on the same goal from the quarterlies, or are you actually working on different goals?
Yes, you could definitely be on the same goal, because a goal to achieve a goal, say we're doing marketing this quarter. One of the goals might be to do with creating content for the marketing. The other bit might be writing copy. And there could be two completely different team members. One's managing the copywriting, the other one's managing the recording of videos and other things like that.
Okay. And having the team all on board, you find that that's just really fired things along a lot better with everybody making the decisions, do you?
Not everyone's making decisions, right?
So everyone's putting in their two dollars worth to get
those that are related to that